Implicit bias inaugurated in full. Yes, we are. And I don't mean like our first episode, like I told you. I mean, we actually have the Presidential Dram as our weekly whiskey this week, available as a pick from New News. This particular bottle we are sampling only available in Youngsville, Louisiana. Actually, it might be available at all their locations, but Lafayette, Louisiana, Central, as is the Mr. Lester's TSPL, the Top Secret Podcast Layer. I'm Kevon Bordelon. The crew that we've got here this week has voted it a unanimous blue. And let me show you who's at the bar. We've got Lee Ritter of Ritter Consulting Engineers. We've got Brian Harmon of Dupree Carrier Godchaw. And of course, we have the consigliere, Chris Castro of Castro Law in the chair, much like mine. So the one thing we didn't get to do, fellas, was play What Would You Pay, which is a tradition on this show where we basically see who can get closest to the price with a guess, or if we would in fact actually pay way more or way less than what the bottle actually costs. So let's start with Mr. Castro. Mr. Castro, what would you pay for this bottle of the Presidential Dram?
I would pay $60 for that.
$60 is your guess. Let's go to the bar. Gents, do you think that this or the liquid that's in this is 60, more, less? What?
I'm going to go with, I'll do 70. I think it's a $70 bottle.
You think it's 70 as by what's in there? Okay. So Ritter, who is taking notes for us in the Implicit Bias Whiskey Tasting Journal.
This being a store pick and something that I have an idea of what it goes for normally, but bought a few of these, but not store pick, I'm going to go $79.
$79 on this Presidential Dram 4-year straight rye whiskey at 119 and change on the proof. Gents, y'all ready to be upset? Because we normally have the What Would You Pay championship belt chain presented by Box Drop of Lafayette, but it's in the shop because it's getting an upgrade, which is going to be really cool. So I know that you're going to be upset about that.
Get a little bling.
Yep. Got to have a little more
Is
bling.
it getting a little lighter?
No, it's not getting any lighter. It is not getting any lighter. But this is a $49.99 bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
49.
That makes Castro on.
You gave it away in your story from earlier.
How did I give it away in my story from earlier?
You were talking about a store pick $49.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, but I said it was on sale up there for $49.
Those are hints and innuendos.
But this, no, I had to have Ritter give me the receipt so I could look at it during the break because I didn't remember. I mean, normally, Ritter, this is, and you know this because you've bought them, I've seen this bottle as high as $79, $89, $99.
Well, that's where I was at, 79. I mean, I've seen them. I think I took a picture in the store not too long ago. I was at a local grocer, and they have a bunch of them, and I was like, oh, send it to Caleb. Caleb's like, oh, my God. And it was just normal stuff. And it was, in that $64 to $79, $84 range. I was like, okay, store pick.
Y'all,
This is going to fly.
And this is going
to be good.
This is getting on my second pour even better than the initial pour. It has settled just a bit. It's had a chance to breathe. Man.
It's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, don't miss this bottle because this is one that you could give to a bourbon drinker who says, I don't drink rye. You could give it to a rye drinker who is like, yeah, I prefer rye more than bourbon, and they're going to love it. You could give this to somebody who is relatively new to whiskey. And tell them, see, high proof whiskey doesn't have to light your head on fire.
So I'm in a chat group with a bunch of guys across the country.
Oh, we don't need to know about that. We don't want the feds coming in here and raiding computers and all that stuff.
They can read everything they want, I promise you. It's a bunch of guys talking about cigars and bourbon. And one of these guys is asking about what's a good introductory whiskey, and it didn't even dawn on me to give him proof. I did Pinhook, I did Penelope, those awesome picks. They're all. He's like. He's got a real whiskey guy across the street, and he's like, I need like $100 bottle. And I was like, man, Penelope and all these other things. Like, you're in $60, $80 range, and you're going to do all right. I didn't even think Proofing would. I whiffed.
And you completely, now looking back, are like, man, I wish I could have given him this one.
Well, I mean, even just to recommend these, they're so under the radar. It's like you almost want to keep them at your own house.
This is that bottle that at $50, people are out there trying to find what should be a $45 bottle of whiskey, and they're paying $250 for it. Yep. I would not touch those secondary market bottles when this is available. It's just that simple.
Is this, you had talked about it a little bit earlier, but this would go well with a mixed drink, like an old fashioned or some other kind of.
If you made an old fashioned with this, Oh,
I
What?
would do a smoked old fashioned with this.
Uh-huh.
actually, you know what I would do with this? Especially considering it's a straight rye whiskey, I'd do a Sazerac with
That's
this.
what I was about to say. I was about to say, oh, a good Sazerac.
A Sazerac. I'm gonna give a shout out to my buddy Alex Saison, his Sirop de Claire with this, with a twist of lemon. You get that herb saint in there in the glass. I mean, just it would smell like a lemon bomb with the whiskey. Fan freaking tastic is what this would do in a cocktail.
So Brian's coming over to watch national championship game, just so everybody knows tonight.
Yeah, no, thanks. We did not need to know your social agenda.
It's okay. Well, I do have one of these. We will give that a run tonight. I have all set ingredients, and I just pointed to him and was like, tonight.
Yeah, this is special. I really like this one. Speaking of special, let's go ahead because this is a special episode. It's an inaugural episode of Implicit Bias because we recorded this episode on the day of the inauguration of the 47th president of the United States. So let's start here. Let's start with your thoughts on what happened on Inauguration Day because, man, talk about a news-filled day. Chris, why don't we start with you? Because I don't know where you're going to kind of land on what the comments were, the two speeches that we got, the things that happened as 46 was rolling out the door and people writing stuff and probably telling him just to sign it and him just signing it and not knowing what he was signing maybe. I don't know. Maybe he did.
I'm sure that's probably what's going on there, and life's easier that way, I guess. In that end,
ignorance is bliss, right?
I would think that, quite honestly, the whiskey we've been talking about metaphorically like fits today. It was bottled 4 years ago. It's running from blue to red, although this is a blue topped bottle. But this bottle, it says that it's aged for at least 4 years, and I think that. I have to admit to you, I did not hear the second speech you might be talking about, but the inauguration, his acceptance speech was good. I think that like this bottle, 8 years ago when he came into office, it was a little more biting.
Okay.
And as he came in today, much more
dignified as this whiskey?
I would say dignified in that, he has a good sense of what it's about, what needs to be done, not say the proclamation, but what the people have asked him to do who brought him into office.
The mandate that he got in the votes.
The mandate and I was much more impressed than I was 8 years ago. Let's just say that. And that dignification, I think, is clearly the experience that he has, and I think that this round will go a lot smoother for him because he knows the playbook.
Okay,
and this is not a first time gig for him. And that 4 year layoff, I think, only helped develop him. Just like this little bottle of whiskey got better in that 4 years.
Fair enough, Ritter.
Chris, that was going to be my question to you. Do you think maybe the 4 years off?
Oh, I think
of the mold that he went in with 8 years ago, thinking what he was going to do versus today knowing what he's going to do.
Exactly.
And having his playbook quadrupled with plays and players on the field. I mean, breaking news, Pete Hegseth was just promoted out of committee. Just having his dominoes with trusted folks versus people who have been recommended to him. Does it just feel
let's
and not just what you're saying. I mean, it's one of the commentators said today that his playbook, or the people that he had promoted for all the appointments, are 3 and 4 and 5 people deep. In the event that his top dog person doesn't make it, then he's ready to go with number 2, and then or whatever it may be. So the playbook that's a good analysis or a good metaphor, and he's ready to go.
And let me jump in here while we get the microphone to Harmon as well. One of the things I think might be underappreciated is, and I love using this word because it's not a word, the strategery that might have been understood 9 years ago. And it's this. In order for him to get elected in 2016, he had to be that guy because the media was in the bag for one candidate. Social media was in the bag for one candidate. The only way that he got the attention that he needed to get to win the votes that he needed to win in the states he needed to win in 16 was to be that guy. So everybody saw it. Then you have 2020, which I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole on this show because, again, if you honestly think that something to the tune of like 15 million people just didn't vote in this election, you're probably sadly mistaken. And I say probably, but my point is, then we get this. So now, coming into this year, you get that juxtaposition. You get that you saw what happened. You saw the last 4 years, and you've heard the media lie to you for the last 4 years about all of it. And what I loved was that we got a little more dignified. We got a little more just, this is what's going to happen, a little more matter of fact. But then in the second speech, you find out that the guy that was there in 16, he's still there, and he's still coming. You still know what he's going to do and what's going to happen. All right, Harmon, we're going to take this from you, and then we're going to take a break, and we'll come back on this topic because this is a good topic.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up on what y'all already said, but I saw, yes, we're seeing a much more disciplined Trump. We're seeing a much more dignified Trump, much more statesman. It was the rollout of his cabinet and the manner in which they did it, one after the next. That's just a different rollout than what we saw. And me, and this is listening to people that should know a lot more than I do. Apparently they were very surprised on election night in 2016 that he actually won and didn't have his cabinet picks selected ahead of time, and it was a very slow rollout. I mean, hell, I think the defense secretary didn't get. I think his first one.
Correct. Didn't even get confirmed.
That's right. Yeah. So off to a good start. I like the first speech that we saw in the rotunda today. That was it was what I was expecting. And then we just saw a continuation of the campaign. I mean, that was a campaign speech. But that's Trump in his element. That's what he does, and he's good at it. He's the best at it.
We are also in our element, but our element, unfortunately, has to take breaks every now and then. Aaron David, Tug is telling us, who's running audio because Walker's out for this episode, that we got to take a quick break. We're going to come back, finish up hour one of Implicit Bias Radio.